I never thought a simple dinner could destroy my dignity in front of hundreds of people. But that night, I realized something painful. Money doesn't just change how people live. It changes how they look at you, how they judge you, and how they erase you. I was invited to what I thought was a normal family dinner. My daughter told me it was important. She said, "Mom, please come. It's my future in-laws. I want everything to go well." So I went. I wore my best simple dress, nothing expensive, nothing flashy. I just wanted to support my daughter. But the moment I walked into that luxury restaurant, I felt something was wrong. People looked at me like I didn't belong in that room. And I didn't know yet that I was about to become the center of humiliation I would never forget. My name is not important. What matters is what I represent. I am a single mother. I raised my daughter alone after my husband passed away years ago. Life was not easy. We didn't have luxury. We didn't have status. But we had respect. At least, I thought we did. My daughter Emily was everything to me. She worked hard, got a good education, and eventually met someone from a wealthy family. I was proud of her. I truly was. But deep inside, I always felt nervous about one thing. Rich families don't always accept people like us. And I was about to learn that the hard way. 3 days before the dinner, Emily called me. Her voice was excited but nervous. "Mom, his family finally agreed to meet you," she said. I smiled. "That's wonderful, sweetheart." But then she paused, and I could hear hesitation in her voice. "Mom, they are very traditional and very wealthy." I understood immediately what she meant. She didn't need to explain further. I said softly, "Don't worry, I'll behave perfectly." But inside, I already felt pressure building. Because I knew one thing about wealthy families. They don't just observe you, they test you. The restaurant was nothing like I had ever seen. Crystal lights, golden walls, a valet parking area with cars I couldn't even pronounce. I stood there for a moment before going inside. My hands were slightly shaking. Not because I was scared, but because I could already feel judgment in the air. When I entered, Emily waved at me. She looked relieved. But sitting next to her were people I immediately recognized as high society. Her future in-laws. Her fiancé's mother looked at me up and down in one slow motion. Like I was an object being evaluated. Not a person. Just something to measure. And then she smiled. But it wasn't a warm smile. It was the kind of smile that hides disrespect. We sat down. The table was long, too formal, too quiet. Then the conversation started. At first, it was polite. "How long have you known Emily? What do you do for work?" Simple questions. But then the tone changed. Her mother-in-law leaned slightly forward and said, "Oh, so you raised her alone? That must have been difficult financially." The word financially was stretched, like she wanted me to feel small. I smiled politely. Yes, it was difficult, but we managed. She nodded slowly. Then came the first real cut. "Well, it's impressive she still turned out well, considering." Silence. I felt it instantly. That wasn't a compliment. That was a warning. I glanced at Emily. She was uncomfortable. She knew. But she didn't say anything. Her fiancé also stayed quiet, like he didn't want to interfere. The conversation moved on, but the tone stayed sharp. Every sentence they spoke toward me had layers. Layers of judgment. Layers of superiority. I tried to stay calm. I told myself, "Don't react. Stay respectful. This is your daughter's future." But deep inside, I felt something breaking slowly. Then it happened. The moment everything changed. Her father-in-law looked at my dress and smiled slightly. It's nice to see people still dress simply these days. The word simply wasn't kind. It was mocking. A few people at the table laughed softly, not loudly, just enough to make it feel intentional. My daughter's face turned red. "Dad," she whispered. But he ignored her. Then his wife added, "We weren't sure what to expect tonight. Emily didn't really describe your background clearly." Background. That word hit harder than anything else, because I understood what she meant. I was the background, not the present, not the future, just something behind their perfect world. I looked down at my hands. I could feel heat in my chest. Not anger yet, not revenge. Something worse. Humiliation. The kind that doesn't explode immediately. The kind that builds slowly, quietly, until it becomes unbearable. I looked at Emily again. She looked like she wanted to disappear. And I realized something in that moment. This wasn't just a dinner. This was a test. And I was failing in their eyes, simply because I wasn't rich enough. Then the waiter arrived. He walked toward the table, but instead of handing me the menu, he paused. I looked confused, then said something that changed everything. "Sorry, which one of you is the guest invited by the mayor?" The entire table went silent. Every single person turned toward me, even her in-laws. And for the first time that night, their expressions changed. Confusion, shock, and something else. Fear. But I didn't understand why. Not yet. And what happened next would turn that dinner into something none of them would ever forget. The waiter's words stayed in the air like a frozen shockwave. "Which one of you is the guest invited by the mayor?" For a moment, nobody spoke. Not my daughter, not her fiancé, not even the wealthy in-laws who had spent the entire evening looking down on me. I felt it too. Something had shifted, but I didn't understand it yet. Her mother-in-law finally broke the silence with a nervous laugh. "There must be some mistake," she said quickly. "The mayor? That can't be right." Her voice sounded forced now, less confident, more uncertain. The waiter didn't laugh. He just checked something on his tablet again. "Yes," he said calmly. "Reservation was made personally under the mayor's office." And then he looked at me again. Longer this time, like he was confirming something. My chest tightened. I wasn't invited by the mayor. At least, not that I knew of. So why was my name connected to this? The entire table changed in seconds. Before this moment, I was invisible to them. Now, I was something they couldn't place. The father-in-law leaned back slowly. His expression wasn't mocking anymore. It was calculating. "Maybe there's a misunderstanding," he said carefully. But I noticed something. His voice wasn't loud anymore. It had softened. People only lower their voice when they feel uncertain. Emily looked at me with confusion. "Mom, did you know someone important was coming tonight?" I shook my head slowly. "No," I said honestly. And that was the truth. I had no idea what was happening, but I could feel something bigger unfolding, something none of them expected. The mother-in-law tried to recover quickly. She forced a smile again. "Well, whatever it is, we are just here for dinner. Let's not make it dramatic." But it was already too late, because the waiter was still standing there, waiting. And suddenly, His posture changed. He straightened. "Actually," he said, "the mayor has already arrived." That sentence hit like a silent explosion. The word "arrived" changed everything, because it meant whatever was about to happen was already in motion. The restaurant doors opened slowly, not dramatically, not loudly, just naturally. But somehow, that made it worse. Because when I turned my head, I saw him. A man in a dark formal suit. Calm, composed, confident in a way that didn't need attention. Behind him were two assistants, and the entire restaurant shifted without a sound. People stood up slightly. Even staff stopped moving. The presence alone was enough. And then I heard it. Whispers. "Is that really him? The mayor is here? He rarely attends private dinners." My heart started beating faster, because I still didn't understand why this moment mattered to me. Until he looked directly at the table, at us, step by step. No rush, no hesitation, just controlled authority. The in-laws now looked nervous. The father-in-law adjusted his collar. The mother-in-law suddenly became very interested in her napkin. Emily's hand touched mine under the table. She was shaking. And then, the mayor stopped, right in front of our table, and said something that froze the entire room. "Good. You're all here." He looked around. Then his eyes landed on me, and he smiled slightly. Not polite, not formal, familiar, like he knew me. And then he said, "I'm glad you came." The silence broke instantly. The father-in-law stood up halfway. "Excuse me, Mayor. Do you know this woman?" His tone was no longer arrogant. Now it was careful, respectful, almost desperate to understand. The mayor didn't look at him immediately. He kept his eyes on me for a moment longer, then finally said, "Yes, I know her very well." That sentence changed everything again, because now it wasn't confusing. Now it was a shock. Emily turned toward me slowly. "Mom, what is happening?" I couldn't answer, because I didn't know. Not yet. But I could feel it. Something from my past was about to come forward. Something I had buried years ago. Something I never told my daughter. The mayor finally pulled a chair, and instead of sitting anywhere else, he sat beside me, not across, not away, beside me. That alone changed the entire atmosphere. The in-laws no longer looked comfortable. They looked unsettled, like their control over the situation was slipping. The mayor folded his hands calmly. Then he said, "I didn't expect tonight to become like this." He paused, then added, "But since we are all here, I think it's time the truth comes out." A cold feeling ran through my body. Truth. What is the truth? And why did it sound like everyone except me already knew part of it? The mayor looked at me again and said softly, "You probably don't remember me the way I remember you." That sentence hit me strangely, because something about his voice felt familiar. Not his face, his voice. But I still couldn't place it. He continued, "Years ago, when my career was collapsing, there was one person who helped me stand again." The table stayed silent. Even the in-laws were now fully focused. The mayor turned slightly toward them. "And that person is sitting right here." Then he pointed toward me. My breath stopped. No one spoke. Not even Emily. And in that moment, everything I thought I knew about my life, I started to feel incomplete. The mayor leaned forward slightly, and said the words that shattered the entire room. She is the reason I became mayor in the first place. A gasp spread across the table. The father-in-law froze. The mother-in-law's face went pale. Emily turned toward me in complete disbelief, and I just sat there, unable to speak, because I finally realized something terrifying. This dinner was not random, and my past. I was about to explain everything. The room felt smaller now, not physically, but emotionally, like every breath had weight. The mayor's words were still hanging in the air. She is the reason I became mayor. I looked at him, still trying to understand. My mind was searching through old memories, faces, places, names, but nothing fully connected. The father-in-law finally broke the silence again, but his voice was no longer strong. Mayor, there must be some misunderstanding. This woman, she is just... He stopped himself mid-sentence because he realized something. He no longer knew what I was. None of them did. The mayor slowly raised his hand. No, he said calmly. There is no misunderstanding. Then he turned toward me, and in a quieter voice he said, Do you remember the community legal center? 15 years ago. Something inside me shifted. 15 years ago, a small community center, broken people, unfair systems. And I used to work there, not as someone powerful, not as someone important, just a volunteer, helping people with paperwork, helping families who couldn't afford lawyers, helping people who had no voice. Slowly, memories started coming back. A young man, struggling, trying to keep his life together after losing everything. A case that nobody wanted to take. A file everyone ignored, except me. I remembered staying late nights, fixing documents, guiding him through legal steps, encouraging him when everyone else said he would fail. And then, I looked at the mayor again, and everything clicked. My voice came out weak. Are you Daniel? He smiled, not as a mayor, not as a politician, but as someone remembering his past self. Yes, he said. I was Daniel back then. The room went completely silent again. The father-in-law looked confused. The mother-in-law looked uneasy. Emily was staring at me like she was seeing me for the first time. The mayor continued. You were the only person who treated me like I still had a future. His voice became heavier. Everyone else saw me as a failure, a case that would never win. But you didn't. You helped me rebuild everything. And without you, he paused, I would not be standing here today. The energy at the table completely reversed. Now it wasn't me who looked small. It was them. The in-laws who mocked me earlier were now silent. The father-in-law cleared his throat nervously. So, you're saying she helped you before you became mayor? The mayor looked at him. Yes. One word. Final. Strong. Unshakable. The mother-in-law suddenly changed her tone. Oh, we didn't know she had such connections. The word connections felt fake now, because it wasn't about connections. It was about respect, something they had denied me all evening. The mayor stood up slowly, and now his tone changed completely. Not emotional anymore, not personal, official. Let me make something very clear. He looked at the in-laws directly. This woman helped rebuild lives when she had nothing. She is respected in more places than you can imagine. And tonight, he paused. She is my guest of honor. The words hit like a final verdict. Guest of honor. Not invisible. Not poor. Not background. Honor. The father-in-law slowly sat back down. The arrogance was gone. Completely gone. Emily turned toward me. Her voice was shaking. Mom, why didn't you ever tell me this? I looked at her, and for the first time that night, my voice was calm, because I no longer felt small. I never did it for recognition, I said softly. I did it because people needed help. The mayor nodded, and that is exactly why she mattered. Silence again. But this time, it was different. Not tense, not hostile. Respectful silence. The mayor turned slightly toward them. His tone became colder. But I also noticed something else tonight. He paused. The way she was treated here. The in-laws immediately became uncomfortable. He continued. This city does not respect people based on wealth. It respects people based on contribution. And disrespecting a guest of honor. He stopped, then finished. Has consequences. The father-in-law tried to speak, but no words came out. The power balance had fully shifted, and they knew it. The mayor looked at me one last time. And I want you to know something. If you ever need anything, you don't need to ask. You already earned it long ago. I nodded slowly, not because I wanted anything, but because something inside me had finally settled. Years of quiet dignity, years of being underestimated, years of staying silent. All of it made sense now, not because I became powerful, but because I never needed to be. That night, I learned something I will never forget. People will judge you in silence. They will measure you by money, by appearance, by status, but they never truly know your story. And sometimes, the people they look down on are the very ones who once lifted others up. As we left the restaurant, Emily held my hand tightly, this time, not out of fear, but respect. And behind us, for the first time all night, the room stayed silent, not because of fear, but because of truth.